So this week's project is a kit from RTO, which is an Estonian cross-stitch company specialising in kits. We've only just started stocking this brand in the shop and I'm really excited because I love kits and I love having designs from different charting companies, different kit manufacturers, different artists. I just like having a little bit of variety. So starting out by unboxing the kit, of course, or unwrapping the kit. And as per usual, we have some thread cards here with all of our thread neatly sorted. And then we also got a needle. This is a John James needle. And this is the needle that I used to stitch the entire piece. And then onto our fabric. Unusual, this fabric, because it's actually printed. So the purple colour comes from printing, not from dyeing. And that's why it's white on the back and purple on the front. And this cross is marking the centre point. I absolutely love this feature. I think this is a brilliant feature to have. And then they've also told us which is the top and which is the bottom so that we get the orientation correct. A brilliant detail, which I really loved. And then, as always, we have our instructions and we have the chart, which actually has more detailed instructions on it. So, as always, I started by popping my fabric into a frame. This is a hoop, I should say. This is a Nurge number 2, I believe, hoop. And I'm just fiddling around to get the tension correct and applying a little bit of pressure in that centre point, at that centre point, just to make sure that my tension is where I want it. As always with these kind of designs, I'm starting at the centre point, which is why that little marking on the fabric is so handy. So I find the centre stitch on my chart. Of course, I can't show you the actual chart because of copyright reasons. Find the symbol at the centre of the chart, find the thread that corresponds to that symbol. And here I was just trying to separate the ends of the thread so that I could pull one single strand out, which I then doubled over so that I had a loop, and I used that loop to thread through the eye of the needle and then pulled it through so that the loop end is the longer end. And that's because I used the loop start method to begin my first stitch. So place my needle through the bottom left hand corner, leave that loop out through the front of the fabric, pull the needle out through the top right hand corner, and then insert the needle through the loop, pull it through, and then go back in that top right hand corner hole, pulling the little knot around to the back. And that's how I always like to start my first stitch when working with 2 strands of cotton. So once I had that first cross stitch placed, it was time to continue on stitching in that colour. And as I was doing this, I was marking off my paper chart with a little felt tip pen. I will just say I made a very silly mistake in that on this particular chart, the back stitch and the stitches are on the same piece of paper, which is perfectly fine. But a lot of the back stitch was marked with a very light, kind of a pale blue line. And I was using a blue marker to mark out my stitches. And of course, what happened when I did that was that a lot of the back stitch began to disappear because I'd used the same colour, which was a really silly thing to do and completely my own fault. So yeah, I had to pay for that later on. But anyway, continued stitching until I had completed the owl. And I was really happy with the owl. I thought it was incredibly cute. And then it was time to finish up that thread. As always, I just turn to the back and run my needle in through the back of some established stitches and then just trim off my excess thread here using my very trusty Pramax embroidery scissors, which I would never be without. Time then to move on to the feather that the owl is holding. In this beautiful blue thread. As you can see, I love when you're kind of working a project and then you're using a lot of the same colours, like the browns and the creams, and then you get to move on to a completely different colour. I find that, I don't know, it just kind of reinvigorates me when I'm working on a piece. And then it was on to the little window I guess, that the owl is visiting. And you can see here I've popped up a little needle minder. This is a caterpillar cross stitch needle minder with a little teacup and a biscuit. And we do have those in the shop. I'm pretty sure they're still in stock. So filling in some more details here, the flower pot, the little heart, the rest of the kind of door, the little hinges, all those little pieces. Just add in a little bit of detail, and then it was time to move on to that big white part, which is the envelope. Oh, first of all, of course, the little green, I guess they're meant to be leaves. I suppose they're not flowers because there's no green flowers really, is there? But I guess the green bits are meant to be leaves. And then it was on to the white panel. I guess it's not a letter, it's a panel. I'm not really sure what it is, but it does have a name backstitch on it, which we'll see in a minute. Speaking of backstitch, as you can see, I did the backstitch on the owl, which I hope you'll agree adds some really lovely detail. And then it was time for the backstitch on the feather, and then onto the door. These little kind of hinges had some backstitch running around, and you can just see that name that I was talking about backstitched there on that white panel. It says Mademoiselle Hibou, which I think is French for owl. But Mademoiselle is a very long word and there wasn't a huge amount of space. So I had to kind of cram in the letters, and I'm not sure how successful I was with that, but I did try. And then finally it was on to the star, which I had actually forgotten about until I looked at the piece and I thought, oh, there's something missing. And I realised that I had forgotten this lovely white star, which actually uses some quarter stitches. That's how the points were made. They're made with quarter stitches, or really 3/4 stitches, I should say. But yeah, just a lovely little detail and a really, really beautiful piece. Didn't take me too long. Very accessible. I think would be great for a beginner. I forgot to mention there is a few French knots in this piece. I did record them. I then lost the clip. I think that's best for everyone, as my French knot technique is a bit messy to say the least. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So as you can see, I have just popped this piece into a picture hoop because it's circular. I thought that was the best idea. I don't know what you think, let me know. And I really enjoyed this piece, and I think I might actually stitch another one in the same series when I get a chance. But for now, thank you for watching and take care. Bye.